Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq. Joining me to discuss indexes that have exposure to cybersecurity and the ETFs that track them is Ben Jones, Product Development Specialist with Nasdaq Index Research. Ben, it's great to have you with me as always. Welcome back to Trade Talks.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right, Ben, let's take a look at your first couple of slides here with an overview on the Nasdaq thematic tech lineup, where cyber fits in and why it's important.
Absolutely. When you think about the Nasdaq, index family, we're certainly known for the Nasdaq 100. It's an index we talk about from time to time. On Fridays on these Trade Talks videos, the 100 largest Nasdaq-listed companies, excluding financials. I mean, it's basically the definition of innovation and growth. A lot of those names that are in there. But within this Nasdaq family, we also have a number of different thematic indexes, covering the thematic technology space, right? You think a lot of those innovators in the Nasdaq 100, a lot of them are coming from the technology sector and the technology industry. So if you are looking to, explore some more, thematic nichier areas, we do have indexes tracking, these spaces. For example, whether you're looking at the new economy or blockchain or cybersecurity, which we're talking about today, or biotechnology. So there's a lot of different, areas to cover. And one of them that we're seeing, a lot of interest and activity and performance and just strong trends is cybersecurity. So that's what I want to focus on today. Within the cybersecurity suite that we have three indexes. And, why is it important? Why are we talking about cybersecurity? So, if we look at the next slide, you can just see what has, transpired over the last few months. Just the headlines, right? I mean, cybersecurity is a major issue, but I think for investors, it presents an opportunity, right? I mean, if you have an Instacart account, Instacart was hacked, Garmin was held ransom. So we see the number of cyber attacks and breaches increase, and it's a problem. I think a great quote, and I don't want to throw hyperboles out there, Jill, but in 2015, Ginny Rometty, who's the current executive chairman of IBM and former president and CEO of IBM, said that cybercrime is the greatest threat to every company in the world, right? That means that companies are going to have to increase their cybersecurity spending, which they've seen, because just the threats are increasing. There was a stat from the Herjavec Group that said it is estimated that a business will fall victim to a ransomware attack every 11 seconds by 2021. For those publicly traded companies, for companies that experience a breach or a hack, share prices fall about 7.2% on average. And that's from data from Comparatech. And so they're expected to see, threats increase, which is why companies are investing in cybersecurity and basically allocating to different cybersecurity services for a number of cybersecurity companies that are publicly listed.
So Ben, what's the impact of cyber breaches on the individual stocks? You briefly mentioned that, and of course the indexes.
Yeah, good question. Because if you think about it, right, it's one thing to see a lot of breaches. It's one thing to say that companies are investing in cybersecurity, but at the end of the day, it doesn't affect performance, right? Is there an opportunity? Because when we talk to a lot of advisors, wealth managers, institutions, those that are allocating themes, some like to take it from a more of like an event-driven play. Others want to allocate towards the the trend of increases in cybersecurity. Those are trying to take advantage of just how it's kind of a hyper growth area. But at the end of the day, if you look at performance, we have found that the cybersecurity company's performance is impacted by just breaches, right? So when you do see a cyber attack or a breach, you tend to see baskets of cybersecurity related companies rise in share price. And so there's a study done by the Nasdaq Index R&D team, and what they looked at was data going back about 5 years. In this particular example, looking at the NQ Cyber Index, and what they found is that 1 month after a breach, 3 months after a breach, on average they saw an increase in the index return. In fact, the NQ Cyber outperformed the S&P by about 34 basis points 1 week after a breach, going 3 months out, and outperformed about 17 basis points. So there is a linkage between cyber attacks and breaches with kind of rise in the underlying index value of a cybersecurity index.
All right, Ben, let's take a look at your last couple of slides here where we can get an overview of the indexes and also take a look at their performance.
For sure. So, we talked about kind of what's at stake, right? We talked about how we've seen a number of cyber attacks increase, how companies are investing in cybersecurity, how we see a link between breaches and, rise in share prices for the, companies in this theme. The question is, how do you access it, right? What solutions are available, right? And so at Nasdaq, we have 3 cybersecurity indexes. You see the ISC Cybersecurity Index, the ISC Cybersecurity UCITS Index, and then the Nasdaq CTA Cybersecurity Index. All of these give you a way to track and measure, companies in this particular theme, right? So if you think about the ISC Cybersecurity, suite, those 2 indexes, those are concerned with, cybersecurity companies that are enabling the protection of and as well as the security of communication between different parts of various aspects of these companies. It's comprised of service and infrastructure providers. So we're providing ISC providing a classification system that is basically providing these 2 unique areas that we're going to identify, right? Service providers and infrastructure providers, giving you a really focused way of tracking companies that are really providing cybersecurity services. Market cap based. It's a modified equal weight weighting. Then you have the Nasdaq CTA Cybersecurity Index. So that is, again, posed to track companies that are engaged in cybersecurity segment, through the technology and industrial sectors. It's a modified equal weighted index, using the Consumer Technology Association, CTAs, their classification. It's a liquidity weighted index as well. So those are, 2 different ways of tracking and measuring this theme. So, when you look at the data and you look at performance, we have seen, strong returns within this area. And that's the next slide. It's just, looking at the ISC, Cybersecurity UCITS Index, HUR is a symbol. Over the past 3 years, we've seen it outperform a global technology benchmark. This year to date, we've seen some strong returns. It's come down a little bit. I think it's trailing the global technology benchmark by a little over 100 basis points. But the key is it gives you a way to access this theme that is just another important area that we're seeing a lot of innovation and growth just in the broader marketplace.
All right, Ben, great insight as always. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks.
Thank you.
And thanks for joining me. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.